The biting wind sent shivers down my spine as I entered the hospital. It was the start of another night shift. Exhaustion tugged at me, but bills had to be paid, and someone had to care for the sick. This old city hospital had seen better days. Cracks snaked along its walls. Shadows danced in the flickering fluorescent lights. The air thrummed with a low, unsettling hum. Tonight I was responsible for the third floor. A seasoned nurse, I told myself I'd seen it all. But something about this night felt different. A prickling sensation ran up my neck. I pushed those thoughts aside. Time to focus on my rounds. The first few hours were uneventful. Patients drifted in and out of sleep. The only sounds were the beeping of monitors and the rustling of sheets. As I made my way down the hallway, I noticed whispers. 2 nurses stood outside room 302, their voices hushed. Curiosity piqued, I paused. "Poor soul," one murmured, her face etched with pity. "Never had a chance." The other nurse shook her head, her gaze fixed on the closed door. I cleared my throat, stepping into the light. "Everything all right?" I asked. The nurses seemed startled, their conversation abruptly silenced. "Just another sad case," one mumbled, avoiding my eyes. They hurried away, leaving me with an unsettling feeling. Room 302. The number itself seemed to echo in the empty hallway, a whisper of something unseen. It seemed colder than the other rooms, the air thick and stagnant. The walls, painted a dull white, seemed to close in, casting eerie shadows that danced in the dim light. Hesitantly, I knocked and entered. The door creaked open, revealing a room that felt like it hadn't seen light in ages. A lone figure lay on the bed, shrouded in shadows. The dim light barely illuminated the contours of the person, making it hard to discern any details. The patient's chart identified him as Mr. Davis, admitted for a heart condition. The ink on the chart seemed to have faded, as if it had been there for an eternity. As I approached the bed, the hair on my arms stood on end. Each step felt heavier, as if the air itself was pushing back against me. The air grew colder, a bone-chilling draft seeping from somewhere in the room. It was as if the room had its own breath, exhaling icy whispers. I shivered, pulling my cardigan tighter. The cold seemed to penetrate deeper, reaching my very core. Mr. Davis stirred, his breathing shallow and raspy. Each breath sounded like a struggle, a fight against an unseen force. His face was obscured by the dim light and the thin sheet pulled up to his chin. The shadows played tricks, making it hard to see his features clearly. "Mr. Davis?" I spoke softly, checking his vitals. My voice seemed to be swallowed by the room, barely reaching his ears. His pulse was weak, his skin clammy. The touch of his skin sent a shiver down my spine, a coldness that seemed to linger. Something felt off, deeply off. The room seemed to hum with an energy, a presence that was both unsettling and unexplainable. Over the next hour, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Each time I turned my back, a cold spot seemed to follow. Shadows flickered at the edge of my vision. Whispers seemed to emanate from the empty corners of the room. My heart pounded in my chest, a primal fear taking hold. Mr. Davis remained still, his eyes closed, but I could have sworn I saw his chest rise and fall in a deep, shuddering breath, a breath that defied the shallow rasp I'd heard before. I tried to rationalize it away, exhaustion playing tricks on my mind, the old hospital playing host to drafts and creaking pipes. But deep down, a part of me knew better. Seeking a distraction, I returned to the nurse's station. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic, and the soft hum of machinery filled the background. I needed something to take my mind off the unsettling events of the day. I found Mr. Davis's chart, drawn to its details like a moth to a flame. The chart was worn, its edges frayed from constant handling. It seemed to hold secrets, waiting to be uncovered. As I read his medical history, my blood ran cold. Each line was a testament to his suffering, a narrative of pain and decline. The words seemed to leap off the page, painting a grim picture of his condition. Mr. Davis had been admitted 3 days ago, his condition rapidly deteriorating. The doctors had tried everything, but nothing seemed to work. His symptoms were baffling, defying all logical explanations, but there was something else. Something that didn't quite fit with the rest of the medical jargon. A detail that seemed out of place, yet crucial. A note scribbled in hurried handwriting caught my eye. It was almost as if the writer had been in a rush, desperate to document something important before it slipped away. Patient claims to see figures in the room, becomes agitated at night. Possible delirium? The words sent a shiver down my spine. What was Mr. Davis experiencing? Was it just a figment of his imagination? Or was there something more to his claims? Delirium? Or something more sinister? The question lingered in my mind, refusing to be dismissed. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than met the eye. The whispers in the hallway, the nurse's evasive answers, it all came flooding back. There was an air of secrecy, a sense that something was being deliberately hidden. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the station into darkness. My heart raced as I stood there, enveloped in the blackness. It felt as though the hospital itself was holding its breath. When they sputtered back on, I was met with an eerie silence. The usual sounds of the hospital were conspicuously absent, replaced by an oppressive stillness. The low hum of the hospital was gone. It was as if the building itself had been silenced, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts and the unsettling revelations of Mr. Davis's chart. Section 6. A desperate struggle. Panic surged through me. I raced back to room 302, my heart pounding in my ears. The door stood ajar, the room shrouded in an unnatural darkness. As I stepped inside, a wave of icy air slammed into me. The temperature plummeted, my breath forming frosty clouds in the air. "Mr. Davis?" I called out, my voice trembling. There was no answer. The figure on the bed was gone. Then I heard it. A low, guttural growl, emanating from the far corner of the room. My blood turned to ice. Section 7. Vanished without a trace. I fumbled for the light switch, my hand shaking uncontrollably. The lights flickered, revealing nothing. The room was empty. Had I imagined it all? The cold, the whispers, the growling? My mind raced, struggling to make sense of the impossible. Just then, I noticed it. A single sheet, lying crumpled on the floor where the bed had been. But the bed itself was gone. A wave of dizziness washed over me. I stumbled back, my hand connecting with something cold and hard, the wall. But the wall felt different, rough, uneven, like stone. Section 8. A History of Horror. The title alone sends shivers down the spine, doesn't it? It's a tale that has haunted me for years, a story that refuses to fade into the shadows of my memory. I spent the rest of that night in a daze. The events that had unfolded were too surreal, too terrifying to comprehend. My mind was a whirlwind of fear and confusion, unable to grasp the reality of what I had witnessed. My colleagues found me huddled at the nurse's station, babbling incoherently about cold spots and growling shadows. They looked at me with a mix of concern and disbelief, trying to make sense of my frantic words. They chalked it up to stress and exhaustion, but I knew better. I had felt the icy grip of fear, the malevolent presence that lurked in the shadows. It was something far beyond the realm of ordinary stress. Something sinister had transpired in room 302. The air in that room was thick with an oppressive energy, a sense of dread that was almost palpable. It was as if the walls themselves were whispering secrets of a dark past, something that defied rational explanation. No amount of logical reasoning could dispel the eerie feeling that clung to me. It was a mystery that demanded to be unraveled, a puzzle that gnawed at the edges of my sanity. Days later I stumbled upon an old newspaper clipping in the hospital archives. It was a chance discovery, one that would shed light on the dark history of room 302. It told the story of a fire that had ravaged this very hospital wing decades ago. The flames had consumed everything in their path, leaving behind a trail of destruction and sorrow. One room, the article noted, had been the site of a particularly gruesome discovery. The details were chilling, a macabre tale that seemed almost too horrific to be true. The charred remains of several patients, their bodies contorted in postures of unimaginable terror. The fire had not just taken their lives, it had captured their final moments of agony, freezing them in time. That room, I realized with a chill, had been room 302, the very room where I had felt the presence of something otherworldly. The past and present seemed to converge in that space, a haunting reminder of the horrors that had once unfolded there. Section 9. The Haunting Truth. The hospital has since been renovated, room 302 erased from existence, but some things can't be erased. The memories linger, etched into the very fabric of the building. Now, whenever I walk these halls, I can't help but feel a cold spot on my skin, and in the dead of night I hear whispers. Whispers that speak of unspeakable horrors. They say that hospitals are places of healing, but some wounds, it seems, run deeper than any medicine can reach, and some places, forever marked by tragedy, will forever be haunted by the echoes of screams.